What a night. What a night. So, let me get the results up here. So, I posted my review yesterday, and I'm doing it live now because yesterday I pre recorded it, edited it, encoded it, saved it, uploaded it, and it took way too long. So, I'm doing this live, and I'm using OBS, which I'm really impressed with. I can do the lower thirds and transitions, so I like that. But it's late. I stayed up and I watched the sneak peek of the Undertaker documentary they're going to post, and then I watched the entire Edge 24 documentary that they post. So I'm tired, but I want to go through it. So I didn't watch the pre-show. I have nothing to say about Liv Morgan and Natalia. However, yesterday I did say Liv Morgan should win that match, and I think I that was my that was my guess that Liv Morgan would win. So yay, I got a point. They started off the show with the NXT Women's Championship, and I didn't like the match. I I was actually really bored, which sucks because I didn't watch any Raws or Smackdowns or NXTs leading up to this. But from what I've seen of Rhea Ripley, I've become a fan. I like her, and I really wanted her to beat Charlotte and get that rub, as they put it, and even have Charlotte continue to feud afterwards. That's what I wanted, and I think even yesterday I said Charlotte Flair was going to win. So 2 points. um, it just sucks, and I said yesterday why I'm not a fan of Charlotte Flair. It's still to this point today. I don't think she needed this victory. You know, she lost last WrestleMania in the triple threat to Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, but I don't think she needed this year. She can afford to have another loss at a WrestleMania. I think Rhea Ripley should have been the rightful winner of that match, and I think it was the wrong choice. But we don't know where they're going with this. I was actually really surprised on how long the match took, considering that the women's championship yesterday was only an 8-minute match, and this one was a 20-minute match. But in the end, I was disappointed, but I was correct in my assumption that Charlotte would go over. So then they put out Aleister Black and Bobby Lashley. And again, I haven't been watching, so I don't know if Rusev is injured or not. But I kind of anticipated him to be there in some capacity, and I was wrong. Uh, but I did say I expected Aleister Black to get the win, and he did. It was a short match, 7 minutes 20 seconds according to Wikipedia, which take that with a grain of salt. But it was short, so I believe that's probably pretty accurate. I don't know where they're going with Delana and Bobby Lashley now. Like I said, I don't know if Rusev is injured. Maybe they put the storyline on hold, and this is their way of kind of rekindling it in some direction. It looks like there's miscommunication. Lana wanted him to do more. Bobby, agreed, and of course that cost him the match. And it looked like there was a little bit of a dispute between the two. That not verbal. They didn't do anything more than just give each other looks. So I think now they're planting the seeds of doubt between the two, which will lead into more with Rusev if that's where it's headed. After that was Otis and Dolph Ziggler, and that's the only segment I was really interested in when I was watching the highlights of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, because I heard really nothing of it until the hacker, whoever it is, showed footage of what's her name, Sonya, causing the whole miscommunication between Otis and Mandy, I think her name is. Um, I was entertained. I did like the match. Again, it was a short match for being WrestleMania. It was about 8 minutes long, but I think it's just where it needed to be. It had a beginning, middle, and end, and it gave Otis a WrestleMania moment, uh, kissing the girl that he was after the whole time. I was entertained. I'm a fan of Otis. I like everything he brings. It. I don't want them to separate the tag team. I like Heavy Machinery as a whole, but Otis as a character is just the perfect addition to the WWE roster right now. From there, they had the very, very long, and again, Wikipedia says it's about 36 minutes long, but the last man standing match between Edge and Randy Orton, which I think was probably the most anticipated match for this entire weekend. Everyone wanted to see this. Everyone is still invested in Edge's return and his comeback story. I do believe that it drug on a little bit too long, but it's a last man standing match. There was a lot of animosity between the two. It needed to be personal. It needed the violence that came with it. uh, Everywhere they went, I feel bad for that performance center because ever since the whole coronavirus started, even before that, when NXT did the show there, when they still allowed fans to be there, they tore it up. Who was it? Tommaso and Johnny tore up the entire performance center for their feud. And here we are again in a last man standing match, and Randy Orton and Edge are tearing it up this time. I did not I did not fully comprehend how big that facility really is until they we basically took a tour with this match. I will say that the being an editor, the camera cuts were really bad. They should have spent a few more seconds trying to make those camera cuts make a little bit more sense. We went from Randy Orton basically being chased by Edge, not chased as in running, but stalking basically. And you see a room that basically has their computer server, the server tower. And then the very next second, we see a cameraman running as fast as he can, and then all of a sudden, we're in the conference room. Now, that server could have been in an adjacent room, and it could have made sense, but just the way it was cut, they were repositioned in another room way too quickly. So I could tell it was edited in post production. And kind of the same way when the cameraman had to run again to the warehouse portion of the performance center to film the rest. And I could kind of tell from one of the announcers, I don't know which one it was, but he seemed really tired. So I'm assuming this was one of the matches they filmed after midnight one of those days. And everyone was just tired and wanted to go home. I did notice also that when they were on top of the trailer where the match ended, and I hate using this word, but there was a retardedly huge ladder. And I say that because when you unfold the ladder and you have those two bracing points that lock in place to keep the legs from meeting each other again, there's no stability there. And it showed when Randy Orton like kind of tagged it with his head when he was trying to get the chairs. But I did notice from a there was a lot of angles where normally when you watch a WWE broadcast, you know there's cameramen, there's the still frame cameras, the people with their big cameras. I don't. It's packed away, but I basically have one too. They're normally hidden. The ringside area, everything's kind of black. They wear black, and they kind of mesh in. And with the white walls of the facility, you could clearly see them. And there's a spot, and I wish I had the clip. But when they make it to the conference room, and they're battling, and Randy Orton just gets up from being like thrown into the two boxes of paper. Um, you see a cameraman kind of like hugging the side and taking a picture, and a guy watching the match behind him. And I'm guessing they got yelled at because one of them like looks at the match, looks at the camera, raises his eyebrows, and like disappears. So I'm pretty sure they got yelled at or fired. But I noticed that. It's just how attentive I am. With the retardedly tall ladder, I did notice that was a prop only for a cameraman to be using it. For a brief moment, I saw the cameraman up on the side facing the one angle to be able to capture most of the action that's on top as like the hard cam, if you will, for what's going on top of the trailer. And that's just the production nerd in me. But it made sense why that stupid big ass tire ladder was there. The I expected Edge to win, and they pulled out all the stops. There was RKO's to begin with. I knew as soon as Randy Orton didn't make his appearance, he's going to sneak in and attack Edge. Um, Everyone hit their moves. There was a spear on top of the trailer. There was an RKO on top of the trailer. There was a concerto, and when you watch it and you're not a continuous active fan of WWE, you're like, why the hell is Edge crying right before he hits Randy Orton? And I've been watching it since 1999, so I knew why. They considered each other brothers. They kept saying it throughout the match. I love you, and uh, they were a tag team for a while, so they were trying to make it as emotional as possible. To sell it like Edge didn't want to do what he had to do to not only win the match but kind of put an end finally to this feud. And everything about that match was just it was good. The editing, I nitpick it, but realistically, when you look at it, that was match of the night. No other match from here beat that. The Edge and Randy Orton could have been the main event. They could have ended the show with Edge on top of the trailer, celebrating his victory. Um, I liked it. It was a good match. I'll probably watch it again. That's how much I liked it. From there, they kind of had the slow down match, basically the bathroom break, and the Street Profits versus Angel Garza and Austin Theory. I know nothing about Angel Garza, nothing about Austin Theory. I actually don't know anything about their history leading into WWE, and shame on me for saying that, but it's true. I did notice Zelina Vega being their manager, and I thought she was managing someone else, so I might have missed something. I don't know if he is like a partner of Angel and Austin, or if they had a breakup. I don't know, but that took me by surprise. Street Profits win, which I think I also said I expected them to retain the titles, and we had an NXT move up by Bianca Belair, coming to the aid of the Street Profits in a way by equalizing Zelina Vega. So I guess we'll find out tomorrow on Monday Night Raw where that leads. I did not know the five-way women's match was elimination. I don't know if they made that announcement or if I just overlooked it when I was looking at the card, but I didn't know it was elimination. So them eliminating Tamina first, I was actually really happy about that because yesterday I mentioned that I'm a fan of Bailey, Lacey Evans. I tolerate Naomi. I'm not a big fan of hers, and I'm not a big fan of Sasha Banks, but I like her as a performer. I didn't expect this to happen. They have the seeds that Sasha's going to turn, and I expected it at WrestleMania, but of course it didn't take place. Sasha showed the seeds of turning. She was eliminated by Lacey Evans, which made the final two Bailey and Lacey Evans. And Sasha came out to the aid of Bailey and gave that backcracker move that I don't know what she calls it, the bank statement or whatever, and causing Lacey Evans to lose. And I mean that could go one of two ways. That could be in the future a Bailey, Lacey Evans, Sasha Banks triple threat. So Lacey gets her rematch in a way, her actual attempt at winning the title. Maybe there'll be a Lacey Evans and Bailey title match later on where Sasha will finally turn and cause Lacey Evans to win the title. Maybe this will just be Bailey and Sasha Banks and Lacey won't be a part of it at all. It's kind of weird that Lacey Evans was a part of it in some way, and I'm curious where this goes from here. From here was the Firefly Funhouse match, and you can just scratch match completely off that statement. It was a Firefly Funhouse. It was basically an episode of the Firefly Funhouse, and John Cena just took a ride. It was entertaining in a way, but it should have been labeled a match. I wouldn't even consider that a match. Like at this point, Bray Wyatt and John Cena didn't compete at WrestleMania. Neither one of them have a win or loss from this WrestleMania, in my opinion. Um, like I said, I was entertained, but it was definitely not anywhere near the level of the Boneyard match from yesterday. And I think the reason why the Boneyard match closed out the show yesterday is because they knew that this Firefly Funhouse match was not going to be on the same level, and they wanted day one to end on a strong note because there was no way that Firefly Funhouse was going to be a topic of conversation other than the fact that there's a lot of people probably saying, why did I just waste 13 minutes of my life watching it? I like Bray Wyatt, and I like The Fiend. And I'm glad they're getting out of the PG era. I was surprised again that they used the word shit during the broadcast. I guess we have Paul Heyman to thank for that. Um, I'm personally not a fan of having kids watch it. Sometimes I turn it on when my kids are around, but not anything current. And I normally don't do anything violent. I'll just turn on the network and just watch an old match that I know is going to happen. And normally it's because my daughter is a curious question, like, oh, do they really get hurt? And does this really happen? I'll show a match where I know someone got hurt from, and I'll show out. I'll show how it happened and what went on from there. So I'm glad we're removing ourselves from the PG era, but there's really no need to keep passing around that S word. Kids are still going to watch. So why piss off parents and your sponsors? The PG era, no adult loves the PG era. Vince loves the PG era because of all the money he got from sponsors and everything. But what do I know? Um, as far as the match itself, not a fan. It was entertaining to a degree, but ultimately it was just embarrassing for John Cena. And that's all I have to say. The only part that really entertained me was when they were kind of cutting each other down when they were doing the Thugonomics version of John Cena, and the way Bray kind of fired back by calling John Cena a bully. I like John Cena. I'm a fan of John Cena, but I don't like how he was written sometimes because he was always anti-bully. And I said several times, how can you be anti-bully if you're throwing the first punch? And John Cena has done that a lot. And it's no fault of his. It's where the script it's written. He's a yes man. He's going to do exactly what he's told. So when he always is the first to throw the punch when they're spitting at each other, just like having that promo between each other, and then John Cena's heard enough, and he's the first to throw a punch. That's bully like. How can you be anti-bully if you're being the bully? Um, so I'm glad someone finally addressed that. But that's it. The rest of that match that could have been a bonus feature for the DVD or Blu-ray release of this WrestleMania, or just a YouTube exclusive. The main event, exactly what we expect from a Brock Lesnar match. I wanted more. And again, that sounds selfish, but not in a selfish way that I wanted more. But Brock doesn't need to do anything more than his German suplexes and F5s. That's all he needs to do to get us, the fans, fired up in the crowd. There is no crowd at this WrestleMania, but that's all Brock Lesnar needs to do for him to have a match in WWE. It's unfortunate, but it's all he needs to do. I always want his WrestleMania matches to be more. Like when he faced Seth Rollins, when he faced Dean Ambrose, there was more to it. He either took more moves, he gave more moves. It wasn't just German suplexes. It wasn't just F5s. There was more to it. The submission aspect. He does that Kimura lock, and there was none of that. It was basically uh, German suplex, German suplex, German suplex, like three F5s, and Drew McIntyre kicked out at one for one F5, two for another, kicked out again, and then it was like three Claymore kicks, and he's the new champion. It was a 4-minute match. And I said yesterday, I expected him to win. So another point for me. I didn't want him to win. I want him to be champion. I feel like he's deserving of being champion. I wanted that moment to wait to when we have a crowd, whenever that would be, August, later. I feel like that moment, like Braun's moment, should have been in front of a crowd because they deserve that ovation, that feeling. Did you watch the Edge documentary after WrestleMania was over? he explains that it's all about the comeback. If the comeback doesn't work, it was all for nothing. And then when his music hit and he said he had literal goosebumps from how loud that reaction was, that's the kind of reaction that Braun would have had. That's the kind of reaction that Drew McIntyre would have had once they won that match. And I feel like they're never going to experience that ovation. When there's finally a crowd, if they're still champion by the time that taping comes around, maybe they'll get an ovation, but they're not going to get that pop of winning that belt for the first time and having the crowd chant for him and scream and yell and the "you deserve it" chants. They're not going to get any of that, and it sucks. But what are you going to do? We're stuck in this unfortunate state, and it's the hand that we've been dealt. All in all, with day one and day two, I actually enjoyed this WrestleMania. I miss the crowds. I sincerely miss the crowds. I want the crowds back in the worst way. And we'll just have to fight through this whole thing and see where it takes us and see who ends up on the other side. Hopefully, a lot more of us. Stay safe. Stay inside. If you're essential, take care of yourself. I'm essential. I'm going to take care of myself. And don't knock this WrestleMania. They gave us a pretty good product for the situation that they're in. And they entertained us. And some of the matches that we thought were going to be sleeper matches turned out to be really good. And the anticipated matches that we were looking forward to were extremely good. And even the matches that we were confused about. The Firefly Funhouse might have, tripped on the laces, but the Boneyard match we all expected to be terrible. We didn't know what to expect out of it, so we expected it to be terrible. And we had one of the greatest cinematic wrestling matches ever. And that goes against the Boiler Room, the Grocery Mart, what else was there? The empty arena between The Rock and Mankind, the Deletion series. There's been so many cinematic wrestling matches. I feel like this Boneyard match now sets the bar. And if Matt Hardy continues to do the Deletion series in AEW, all you AEW marks can say whatever you want. These are big shoes to fill now. That Boneyard match was well deserving of being super over. And I posted this on Twitter before, but you millennials have got to stop thinking that Matt Hardy started this. Matt Hardy did not start this. This has been around forever. He didn't start it. He helped evolve it. And I give him that credit. But this Boneyard match that happened yesterday blows it out of the water. And they have big shoes to fill for that. But as far as WrestleMania as a whole, I enjoyed it. And my friend posted on Facebook that he hopes that WrestleMania in the future turns out to be a 2-day thing. And you know what? I agree. Because if you look at it, we had 18 matches in the course of 2 nights. And while yesterday was more of like a 3-hour pay-per-view, like a standard pay-per-view, part 2 was more of a 4-hour pay-per-view. And, collectively you have that entire, what we expect from a WrestleMania being a 7-hour, 8-hour pay-per-view, a whole day affair. So we got our hours worth of entertainment. But the past few WrestleManias where it was taking forever and would end on midnight, it was exhausting. Especially a lot of us that work on Monday. It was really exhausting to have to sit through that much of a show. So I really hope that WrestleMania from now on really is a 2-day show. 18 matches, 20 matches, whatever. Just break them up between 2 days. This was great. And that's my review. Post your comments if you like. Like this video, subscribe. I feel like I should do more of these. This was actually fun for me. Yesterday I talked for 40 minutes. How long did I talk here? 25. Not bad. Half that. So yeah, like, subscribe, ring the bell. I think they have that new standard where you ring the bell and then you say, please notify me. Do that if you wish. Doesn't matter. Thank you for listening. And I hope you all have a great night.
Who cares? Who cares? No, no.